Good afternoon, everyone. I am Heather Cole with Lodestar Solutions, and today we're going to talk about presenting your analytic solutions to executives. Now, what I'm going to show you today is not software specific. These are presentation techniques that you can use whatever you're trying to pitch to your executives internally. And it's going to be sharing the secrets that I have learned over 30 years in the software industry in every role imaginable, from being inside of a company using software to being in a consultant, trying to get projects approved, being pre-sales person where I actually did the demos to being a salesperson. So I've had every role responsible. And so today we're going to share with you specific tools that you can use to be able to sell your ideas internally and get the funding that you need, get the notoriety and respect that you deserve, and more importantly, increase end user adoption. So let's go ahead and get started. So why do you need to learn presentation skills? Like, anyone that wants to increase their performance in technology, so leveraging solutions internally, you got to share your ideas and actually show how amazing the technology you're using is. We, as IT or finance professionals, or really whatever area that you're in, want to be able to better communicate our ideas and become more influential. The functional areas that are deploying new tools need to be able to get end user adoption, and anyone using agile project management methodologies needs to be able to show at the end of each sprint what they have. So, presentation skills are really important, and I believe they can also help you get promoted and make more money. So also great for consultants or anyone just looking for funding. So here's the problem. We learn software, we learn technology, and they forgot to actually teach us how to present it. So you guys may have invested, your teams may have worked months to deliver this amazing budgeting and planning solution. And now it's time to really roll it out. But did anyone ever teach you actually how to show your tool? Here's the biggest mistake that we make. And by the way, it's not your fault that no one taught you. That, like, I studied finance and IT, or computer science, in undergrad at Iowa State University, and no one ever said, hey, you're gonna have to show your stuff someday. We took speech class, one speech class in all of college. I had nothing to do with demonstrating your tools. And what I learned the hard way, because I went from consulting into pre-sales, is I went into a lot of detail. So I would go and show the software, and I would show every feature functionality, be like, isn't this cool? And I would just overwhelm the audience, like drinking from a fire hose type thing going on here. And so what we need to do instead is we need to be able to do it and show what's going to solve the problem that your end user is having, to show how you're going to make their life easier with your new tool. Let's say you're rolling out a new budgeting tool and you're using planning analytics. So you've built all these cool models. Now you're going to show them to the executive. You're going to show how quickly they can get results, how quickly they can do a what if scenario, maybe how they use sandboxes, the cool stuff. I had a demo one day with a big distributor, and the CIO was sitting in the room, and we did the demo, and we showed him all the cool stuff that would help their organization with the new release. And literally he goes, so that sandboxing thing, that what if thing that you just showed me, can I have that now? And we said, well, yeah, we can get that too. He's like, I approve it. If I can get my sandbox, I approve it. It was that simple. He wanted one thing out of the software. He didn't care about all the bells and whistles. He wanted to be able to model his budget and be able to do some analysis on it. So less is more when it comes to demoing. So why are these important? Well, we've talked about increasing end user adoption. If people feel comfortable and excited, they will use your technology. It helps you secure funding for other projects. So maybe you rolled out your operating expense budget, but maybe you want to do a rolling forecast, but you haven't been able to get the time or the resources or the help you needed to get that project done. This can, by showing how amazing your software is and how easy it will be to deploy, you'll be able to help secure that funding. It shows the results of your hard work. You guys work amazing hours and a lot of hard work goes into building your solutions. You want to present it. Like, imagine if you were a cook. I don't know if anyone's into cooking. I'm actually a horrible cook. If it does a good ding, I didn't make it. Sometimes it goes ding dong. And so imagine if I were a great cook, like Julia Childs, I make this wonderful meal and I serve it on like a Dixie plate, right? Like, you don't go to a 5-star restaurant and they don't serve it like looking bad. They don't have a disheveled table. They don't show up on a picnic table, right? They give you the whole presentation. And that's what you want to do with your presentations of whatever your solution is. This is your opportunity to look like a rock star personally. And here's the cool thing, and I always share this, is being in finance and IT, the executives don't usually expect us to be really great presenters. I mean, how many, let's call us, I'm a hybrid, so I can call you both out. Let's say you're in IT. How many IT people do you know that are like amazing presenters? That's not a thing, right? The bar is set really, really low, guys. What's cool is all you have to show up and people are going to respect you. And with a little fine tuning that we're going to teach you today, you're going to be a rock star. And then agile methodologies, which we strongly are in favor of. If you're not familiar with this, go Google Agile or Scrum, maybe get Jeff Sutherland's book. It's The Art of Doing Twice as Much in Half the Time or something to that effect. Read that book or listen to Audible, learn about agile methodologies. But in that methodology, you do small little chunks of your project. And after each phase, you show and deliver a solution. So you need to be able to demonstrate it. And of course, being influential and selling those ideas internally. So what do you fear most? This is an interesting little study of the top 10 phobias. And believe it or not, public speaking was number 1. So we all fear it. I used to fear it. I do it a lot, so I don't fear it as much anymore. But 19% said that the number 1 fear was public speaking, more than death. Can you believe it? People feared public speaking more than death. I guess maybe death is inevitable, so they don't fear it as much. I don't know. But I thought this was really interesting. And then another 74% of people suffer from speech anxiety. So they're like, oh, I got to get up and speak. You get over this by practice. So maybe join Toastmasters, maybe just try and offer to do more presentations, but mileage helps. It's kind of like an athlete, you got to do the practice. Now, first I'm going to share with you the art of leading a presentation. So maybe you're a manager and you want to have a presentation for the executive teams or maybe different business units to show what you have delivered. Now, maybe you're going to lead the presentation, but someone else on your team is actually going to do the demonstration. So if you're the leader of the presentation, I want to give you a couple tips and a couple guidelines of what I think you'll want to do. Number 1, before the demonstration ever happens or the presentation, set expectations. Send out pre-emails, invite the right audience, and send an email saying, we are going to show you blah, 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 like 4 bullet points. Less is more. You're not there training and presenting to get funding or to show what you've done are 2 different things. Just remember that. Training goes into all the details and walks them through certain exercises. This isn't that. This is I want to show you how amazing this is, how this solves some business problems, and maybe I'm going to ask you for more funding or more resources to go to the next stage, right? So set that expectation as a precursor, right? Set the time limits, adhere to that time, don't go over, ensure the right audience, and then you're going to facilitate before this ever happens. And this is probably part of your project, but I always put it here if you're just trying, if you haven't started your project yet, but you're trying to get funding to maybe buy a new software solution, you need to facilitate that requirements discovery session. and being able to try and figure out what it is. I'm going to give you some tips on that a little bit later in this presentation. You're also going to be the one that leads the objection handling. Now, you know your audience probably pretty well. You probably know the kind of personalities there, who's going to always say, it costs too much, right? And so forth. So what you want to do is be the person that leads the objection handling. Before you ever do this presentation, you want to sit down with your teams and say, when we present this to the executives, what is Bob going to say, right? What comments or concerns is he going to have? And actually get a notebook, write them down. This is before your presentation. What Bob's going to say, we don't have time. Mike's going to say, we don't have resources. We don't have money for this project. It's not in the budget, right? So write all those down and then come up with the objection. I'm going to show you some concrete examples of that a little bit later, but that you should be leading that before you get into the presentation. Because once you do that, if you weave in the answers to those objections before they actually ask it, it's like you're answering the question in their head. And then you're going to really connect with those executives, and they're going to be like, man, Betty Lou is amazing. She's actually thinking just like I am. And it's going to create a better connection with you and that executive. As the lead presenter, or you're like the master of ceremony, you might not be the one actually showing the software, right? Or the technology, but you are the meeting facilitator. So you're going to want to frame the presentation. Today, we're going to show you blah, blah, blah. And as you go around the room, hey, I'd like to quickly take, and make sure everybody knows each other, and quickly, one thing that you want to take away from today, and write those down and try and again, weave those in. Now you probably should kind of know what they're going to ask before you ask the question, kind of like lawyers, right? Never ask a question you don't know the answer to, but hearing their voice and letting them say, I want to see how this solves this problem, gets them more engaged. So don't skip that step, guys. Also, if you're not the main presenter, if you're the facilitator or the master of ceremony, you want to help read the audience's reaction. And I'm going to give you some tips on how we do this virtually, how we do this live. But you really, while the person is actually doing what we call pre-sales or demo of the software, you want to be watching the faces, right? Don't always focus on the screen. Look around the room and go, ooh, Mary Jane is looking a little confused. Amit, he's got it. And if Mary Jane is confused, say, hey, Mary Jane, any chance you have a question? Is there something maybe that you don't understand? And open that dialogue, because the person demoing is hunkered down. They're like, whoop, right? They're down in their presentation. So be that facilitator. Now, your also job is to be the wingman or the wingwoman. And what this does is Murphy's Law will tell you at some point, something's going to happen. Maybe the system goes down, maybe the projector light bulb. I've had it once where I was presenting and the projector light bulb got burnt out, and they replaced it with a bad one, and that one burned out, all in the same presentation. So I ended up having to draw pictures. It was very hard, but your job is to be the wingman. When something goes bad or the system crashes or something happens, what you want to do is, if you're live, you want to stand in the back of the room or the side of the room and turn and start talking and say, hey, what John is showing you, blah, 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 and literally get them to swing their heads to look in a different direction if you can. If you're virtually, stop their screen share, go live on camera, and start talking. And it will give the person doing the demo some much needed relief while they repair whatever happened, or they reboot or do something, right? It will happen. Be prepared to be their wingman. Don't just let them suffer, okay? If you can, bring the energy. People love a lively meeting. One of the reasons why people love my meetings is because they leave and they say, Heather, I feel like I have energy. And that is contagious. Now, here's my secret. Before I present, I jam out on just some great tunes. I have a couple of go-to songs that are just like my songs, that really lift me up. Change your physiology and bring it into that room. And so when whoever, we call them pre-sales team, but whoever your team is that helped you, when you get funding, go share it with them, celebrate, thank them for their efforts. because everyone puts in a lot of work to be able to get projects approved. Now, you got to stop and look at your own presentation skills, right? Are you boring your audience? Have you guys ever been in a pre-sales or in a demonstration and you're like, oh my gosh, this person is killing me? I've been on plenty of technology presentations where I literally felt like I wanted to poke my eyes out for an excuse to leave the room. Don't be that. Don't do what we call show up and throw up. And what this means is I'm going to show you every feature functionality. Stop doing that. You're going to instead learn the art of storytelling. It's not about features, it's about stories and solving the problem. Feature functionality overload. You have to look at training is different when you're trying to present your solution and get adoption and people embracing it. You want to do less is more. Okay? Don't overload them with feature functionality. Use a dynamic voice. Think about if you've had a kid or a niece or a nephew and you read them a bedtime story. You don't go, the man in the moon said goodnight to the small child, right? You go, the man in the moon with his deep voice said, good night, my darling, right? You use animation in your voice. So try and do that. Now you don't want to go overboard, right? But just level it up a bit. Forgetting to include the audience. So sometimes people get so nervous and they're just like, stop and pause and say, hey, Bob, what do you think about this? Or Jenny, do you see how we might be able to use this to solve this problem and get them talking? And here's the thing, when the audience starts talking together, you can just shut up and let them go. And throw ideas around. And then when it's appropriate, you're like, okay, if you don't mind, we're going to get back to, we have some more things to show you. But that's amazing dialogue when they start talking about how they're going to use your technology. Now, this is the framework for a demonstration success. And that starts with the audience. You got to know your audience. True story. A number of years ago, I had a client who had been using planning analytic software for a number of years. They got a new CFO. He had been there about 18 months. And they said, Heather, can you come in and show the software to our new CFO and show him what we've done? He wants to have a better understanding of what we're doing for budgeting and forecasting. I said, sure, I'd love to, but I need to know a little bit more about him. And of course, I did his LinkedIn research and so forth. But I asked some probing questions about how does he make decisions? Like, is he someone that likes to lead a meeting, or is he one of those kind of people that sits back and just processes? And the VP of Finance says, well, don't worry, he's only going to last 20 minutes. I go, well, we have the meeting set for an hour. And she's like, yeah, he hasn't sat in a meeting for more than 20 minutes since he got here. And I'm like, I said, in the meetings, is he always on his phone doing this thing? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. So I asked a few more questions because I suspected that he had a little bit of ADD going on, right? Where his attention deficit was causing him to go all over the place. So I asked a few more questions and I realized, I said, I got this. Come demo day, I go in there and now I've been told this is the only person that I really have to win their heart of. Everyone else already uses the software, already loves it. They just want him on board. So all I care about is that gentleman's connection. So I start talking at warp speed. I'm like talking faster than I am now. And everyone else in the room, that's the point, their eyes are kind of rolling, like, whoa, this is like drinking from a fire hose. But what happened is my level and speed and ADD was at par with his. And he was suddenly very comfortable. And he started shooting me questions that were all over the place. And I just went with him. Right? He'd ask a question about this, and then he'd ask a question about this, and I'd jump right there, and we bounced around like a little super ball. And he stayed for an hour and a half. And afterwards, the VP of Finance says to me, what just happened? He's never stayed that long in a meeting. And I said, it's very simple. I was speaking at a tone and pace and method that was very comfortable to him, which he's not used to, by the way. When you talk methodically and slowly to people with ADD, their brain literally jumps and they can't focus at all. But if you do it on their level, they're very comfortable. So know your audience. And hopefully I helped some of you, because there's a lot of executives out there that have a little ADD. That's what makes them creative and great at what they do. So know your audience. Second, tell the story. Did you guys see what just happened there? I shared the point of telling a story with a story, right? So when I was talking about the audience, I used a story about a client engagement that I had that maybe you can relate to. So use storytelling and analogies to share how to kind of teach people that maybe not great at technology complex things. So a lot of times I try my stories out on my mom. My mom is 80 years old. She's a little dynamo, but technology is not her thing. But I know if I can explain technology in a way that my mother will understand it, I'm golden, right? Everybody will understand it. So you can also listen to salespeople or other consultants and how they explain things and borrow their stories. I always tell clients, when I tell a story in a presentation, if that's something you think you could benefit from sharing, my story becomes yours. It's my little gift to you, because analogies and stories work. You want to foresee those objections. We talked a little bit about this before, and weave them into the story. And here's a great way to do it. If you know that price and the cost of this phase of the project that you're pitching is going to be one of the objections, you simply say, now you may be thinking, how much is this going to cost? And then you do your objection handling. We've done the analysis, and although it will cost X number of dollars, we believe the ROI is going to be this, and give the details behind that, right? So you've already upfront figured it out. You address the question in their head before they ever asked it. Anytime you have a big presentation, practice, practice, practice. So a couple of years back, I had a distributor client of ours that was buying out another big distributor. In fact, the distributor they were merging with or buying was bigger than they were. And they had two conflicting softwares, meaning they both had software doing the same thing, but were not the same technology. One was the IBM software and one was something else. And so they were going to fly to the headquarters of this company they were acquiring and show them kind of the tool they use so they could discuss which one was to be used. Now, the client that I work with did not want to get rid of their models. They love their models. They built them. They wanted to keep them, but they were afraid this bigger company that they were acquiring might win this battle, right? So they're like, Heather, we're going to go show this. And I said, well, have you started practicing? And they were, well, what? They're like, we know the software, we built the models. And I'm like, and? They never even occurred to them to do a dry run practice on how they're going to pitch it. And I said, we are scheduling some time where I'm going to work with you. We're going to get your pitch so that you win their hearts. And what was interesting is they were just going to do the show up and throw up, which seemed natural, right? I mean, I would have probably done the same thing if I hadn't have my history. So we kind of worked with them, and it was a huge success. The other company loved what they saw, couldn't wait to get on the technology, and it really blended these teams. Now, every presentation requires a call to action. If you're just doing a let me show you status check, you're probably wasting people's time. But you should always be having a purpose of your meeting. And the purpose could be, hey, I need funding for this project. I need so-and-so to approve this. I need you to give us resources. I need a subject matter expert from marketing. Something is what you want out of this meeting. But what so many people do is they demo what they've done and they demo their solution and they forget to ask. There's no action steps or no deadline steps. So you need to make sure you put those at the end of your presentation. We talked about audience. I'll go into this kind of quickly. The audience typically has two pains. There's an internal pain and external pain. And what we mean by that, the external pain is typically the pain that they know. And I'm going to take this out of the technology world. And I'm going to talk about skinny jeans. So let's say I had a reunion coming up and I wanted to get into my skinny jeans, right? Every woman, we have like 3 sizes in our closet. And maybe with COVID, I got into large size and I want to get into the skinny size. So my external pain is I need to fit in these jeans before my reunion. Now, that's the external, but what's really happening is maybe I'm a stress eater, right? But if I went and I was, let's say there was a life coach, somebody that specializes in health care and nutrition. And they were like, hey, I help people with stress eating. I'm not going to buy their services, right? Why? Because I don't think I have a problem with, stress eating. I have a problem that my jeans don't fit, right? So when you're doing your presentation, you want to address both the internal and the external pain. And so the internal pain could be the report data is wrong, or we have too many sources of data that are not part of my reporting structures. Like there's a lot of like COVID data I can get from the government now, and maybe I want to put those in my reports to see what's happening. But my internal pain might be that we don't have a good master data management structure. Maybe we need a data lake. Maybe we need a data warehouse. Maybe we need just a data mart to have a one version of the truth data. And that's the pain. So we can uncover the internal pain by addressing the external pain. That's how you get support in your organization, is addressing both. Now, I talked earlier about your job is to facilitate and to lead the requirements discovery session. This is essential. And here's how you do it. You use sticky notes. Sticky notes are amazing, and they will allow you to facilitate a meeting much faster. So we can take months to do a discovery session, or we can get down to the nitty-gritty in about 20 minutes. Here's how this works. You're going to make sure everyone has a stack of sticky notes, and you're going to make sure that they have a timer. I use my iPhone to do it. I set the timer for 20 minutes, and I'm going to ask everyone that in the next phase or in this project, what are things that you want to solve? What are the challenges that we're having? What are the things we have today that you love that we want to make sure the new solution still incorporates? Every idea goes down on one piece of paper. And I set the timer because, have you ever had all day Saturday to clean your house? How long does it take? All day Saturday? Yeah, right? It takes all day Saturday to do it. But if I set a timer and I go ahead and use that timer, what happens? Well, I can get it all done very quickly. Or let's say mom calls or texts. Hey, Hev, I'm gonna be at your house in an hour. What happens? I am running around the house like a mad woman. I'm vacuuming dog hair. I'm cleaning it all up, dishes in the dishwasher very quickly, and I can clean my whole house in an hour. Same address is here. We want to set a timer because we can get a ton done in 20 minutes if we're very focused. Now, once you have those sticky notes, you're going to organize them as a group and prioritize them. Sometimes we actually put this in a smart sheet or a web sheet that has them. And from that, we extrapolate the priorities for phase 1 of this project. If you're using Agile, this will help you create your backlog. So use your sticky notes. And here's the secret to sticky notes. Buy the ones that say super sticky on the back. The ones that are just regular or the generic ones, if you put them on a wall or a flip chart and go to lunch, they tend to fall down and end up on the floor. So I'm a big fan of the super sticky ones. Now, active listening is always a challenge. And what I mean by that is many of us are highly analytical people. Our brains are wired to solve problems. And so what active listening allows us to do is to kind of change how we listen. So as an analytical person, I tend to hear a problem and my brain goes and starts solving. It's like, oh, we have this data in SQL and we have this and we can move this here and we can do this. And I start solving the problem. And as the other person's talking, I stop listening. I literally can't hear them because my brain's going so fast. So we have to stop our brains and just focus on writing all the problems that they're sharing with us. And then you want to repeat what they told you. So, hey, Jenny, if you don't mind, let me take a minute and kind of reiterate what I think I just heard so you can let me know if I missed anything. And you look at your notes and you reread what they said and what the problems were. Because two things happen. One, if you got it wrong, they're going to correct you then and there. But number two, what this does is this gives them the opportunity to go, oh, and they tell you more. It's like, wait, I forgot to tell you. And that is where your secret sauce is in the, oh yeah, we also do this, or oh yeah, we also have a problem with this. But that comes oftentimes after you repeat the story that that they just shared with you. So make sure you're doing that repeat. Try to demonstrate on paper first. So you want to make sure that if you are planning a new phase of your project, that you sit down. And I had a client a couple of years ago that the CFO was kind of frustrated. They weren't getting the BI reports they wanted. The BI team thought they delivered the reports, the dashboards. And so we literally sat them down with pen and paper and colored, actually we gave them colored crayons. And we had the CFO draw like pie charts and graphs, what he wanted. And then we gave that to the BI team and said, build this. And they hit a home run, amazingly, right? Because it was exactly, and when they showed it, they actually said, this is what you showed us, and this is what it looks like on the screen. Now, you'll notice I have on the slide, your baby is your baby ugly? So here's the hard part about this. When you're trying to implement something new or trying to standardize some reporting, maybe a department had an Excel report and you want to deliver that same information in a more standardized business intelligence tool. Someone owned that report. Someone gave birth to that report. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're not calling their baby ugly. You're thanking them and you're appreciating their work and said, Ralph created this report in Excel, and I got to tell you, he did a fabulous job. And we're going to use this as a foundation or a framework to put it in BI where you're now going to have more capabilities because the tool he had didn't have as much capabilities. Here's what we're going to add to it. So you're not calling their baby ugly. You're not looking to replace it. You're saying, we're going to use this as the foundation and give them credit where credit is due. You're going to find that when you do that, people will embrace your technology so much more. Always, when you're virtual, go on camera, show yourself, because people connect with people and they're going to be more engaged if they can see you. Various studies show that up to 93% of all communication is verbal. So when I make this crumpled forehead look, that means something. So ask your participants to go on camera as well, so we can start to get that nonverbal. Using your voice and inflections also helps. Like when you get excited, you can talk really fast. And when you really want to make a point, sometimes you just need to slow it down. So we talked about storytelling. People remember stories. That's how history was passed down for decades. So start with the pain you are solving in the eyes of the audience. You're going to kind of make them re-feel the pain that they have. And how you can do this is you start first by doing the requirements discovery to find out what their pains are. Don't assume anything. Let them share their stories. It's kind of like a therapy session for them, right? Start at the end of the story. Now, if you're going to be showing, let's say, a business intelligence solution, a dashboard that you created, start with, and you're going to show how it's built or how they can interact with the dashboard. Start with the end story. Say, here's the story. Show the dashboard. This is how you're going to engage. Now, if you wanted to create it yourself, this is how you do it. Then go to the white page and show them. So always start with the end of the story. Or imagine having a planning and an analytics solution where forecasts could be done by a rolling forecast, where we didn't have to do the big budget cycle every year. In fact, our forecast, the budget became just a snapshot of our forecast at a period in time for bonus calculations, right? Imagine being able to have up-to-date and more accurate numbers for Wall Street if you're publicly traded. Like those are the way you start with the end of the story, and then how are you going to get there? Learned about. This is by far one of the best things I ever learned. I went to World's Greatest Speaker Academy a number of years ago, and I learned the secret of bounce. I've done it to you many times in this presentation. You might not even realize it. What bounce is where I say something and I start a story, but I allow you to put yourself in as the lead character in my story. I oftentimes start with, have you ever had a time where, or imagine a time when, and all of a sudden you're imagining yourself having that. So I might do it where, have you ever had it where it's the end of the month, you're trying to close the books, and there's something wrong with the data, something's not updating, you can't leave, little Johnny's soccer game is happening, and your wife's calling you, you need to get there, and you're super stressed out, you can't figure out what's wrong with the report. Like, gosh, it's so stressful. Have you ever had that experience? Well, we're going to show you a solution that will make it so you never have that experience again. Like, do you see what I did? I let you put yourself in the story. This increases engagement. It helps people remember the story, and it will create much better connections with you. Try it. Practice it with your friends. It's super easy to do. Just start with something like, do you recall a time, or have you ever? And try and work with that. We talked about using your voice as an instrument and leveraging analogies. And remember, less is more. You don't want to overwhelm your audience, especially busy executives. You want to give them just a chunk that shows them that they're on the right path. Maybe tie in what you're doing with the strategic goals of the company. And by the way, guys, if you don't know the strategic goals of your company, go find them out. Go read your 10K, go ask the executives, like, what are you really trying to accomplish this month, this quarter, this year? And somehow weave what you're doing into helping the organization accomplish those goals. We talked about objection handling. I'm going to give you a short, brief version of this. Let's say that Bob is the CFO, and we think that Bob is going to say, we don't need to spend the money on more reporting tools. I get the reports I need. But you know that it requires significant hours to manually compile all those reports. They could be error prone, and there's no time for analysis. And you're at risk of losing some of your talented people if they're just doing data chasing. Many of us in finance went to school to be able to do the fun analytic part of it, not to data chase. And so in your presentation, you would say, you may be thinking, why would even have to invest in a better reporting solution when I'm already getting the reports that I need? But what you don't know is, and you share your objection and you weave that into the presentation. Or another one might be, Jenny is the IT manager, and you're pitching a new solution, and they say, I don't think our users are that advanced. We see this in a lot of very old companies that are like 100-year-old companies. They're like, our users are not going to handle this, right? And then you say, well, you may be thinking that our users are not equipped to handle such advanced technologies, but our strategic goal is to help all of our teams level up their skills. And this will be a perfect opportunity because we're going to make sure we have the right training in place, that we help to get them more advanced skills. And we planned our deployment in this way. See how you handle that right up front? So you address the conversation in their head. Now, call to actions, we said, are super important. This is the one thing people always miss. They do their meeting and then they just like sit there. So what do you want people to do after the meeting? Like, are you trying to get funding? What do you want? And when do you want them to do it by? People always forget the when. If you just say, this is what I want, it could take months. It could take years. So make sure you say, are we in agreement that we could do this by June? And give them a deadline. What that gives you the opportunity to do, come May, you're getting close to the end of the May, you can call them and go, hey, we had agreed in this meeting that we're going to try and do this by June. Can you give me a status update? So it allows you to reach out to keep that line of communication going. You have to determine who needs to be involved. Who are the players? Does this have to go to capital committee to get funding for your project? And what are the next steps? Make sure you know exactly what has to happen. The most important thing you can do is do the time. Practice, practice, practice.
Record yourself and score yourself. So figure out, did I bounce? Maybe score how many times you do that. Did I tell stories? Did I keep my voice changing and excitement in it? Go on camera. This is super scary when you watch yourself on camera, guys. I know it. I have like 6 chins. I hate my voice, but there's some things you can't change. So do it. Look for small things that you can improve and work on those. It just takes a little bit at a time. I often recommend that you do dry runs with your colleagues before a really big presentation and record it, because Murphy's Law says that something at some point is going to happen. And when you need to be the wingman, if you have a recorded dry run that is almost like a dress rehearsal, and you can say, hey, it looks like, Mike's computer died. Hey, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to play a pre-recorded version of this. And everyone's going to be like, yes, please, because they don't want to reschedule the meeting. Don't forget your wingman. If you are the wingman, be prepared. Be ready to jump in and help change the focus while someone addresses the issues. I love this quote, failure to practice is practicing to fail. We sometimes don't realize that some of the most important meetings of our lives, we just show up and we're like, oh, I'm nervous. I guess I built a slide deck, but I didn't actually practice vocalizing this, right? That's the big difference. That takes you from average to just excellent. If you want to be the top in your company, top in your game, you gotta practice the presentations. Now, I wanted to give you a couple points. I'm going to go through these pretty quick because we're all have had this before, what I call the presentation or software disaster demo, where like things just happen. When that happens, do not highlight your mistakes. Don't just keep moving. Don't be like, well, I shouldn't have done this and this and this and this. Stop it. They probably didn't even notice. If you forgot to tell them something, they didn't know it was coming. Just move on, right? When bad things happen, if you're live and you can get to the projector, be ready with a notebook or something to cover the screen so the pre-sales person or the person doing the demo can fix whatever's happening, but you don't show the blue screen of death, right? If you are in a room with a projector on the ceiling, have the clicker to turn that screen off. If you're on Zoom or a web application, make sure they hit stop share when things start crashing. Have the wingman or be the wingman to help that person out. If it gets really bad, you can call a timeout. You can be like, guys, we're just going to have to stop here. Have a PowerPoint or video ready. I love the video of the practice run, the dress rehearsal, that I can just go, guys, things aren't happening here. Here's the video. Now, we've had situations before where bad things happen, and even we couldn't even do the video because internet was going all haywire. And what we did is we had put a copy of the video on YouTube as an unlisted one. And so when stuff happened, we knew storms were coming, so we were suspect. We said, guys, we're having problems with the video piece of this or with the presentation. We're going to send you a link. Why don't you all click it and go ahead and watch that video, and then we'll come back and chat online. And that worked. Have that video on someone else's laptop. If you're in the room physically, and let's say Mike is doing the demonstration, I would have a copy of that video on my laptop in case his laptop crashes. All of these things come from things I learned the hard way. The things that caused me so much stress and I had to deal with. So I don't want you guys to go through those. Now, virtual demo, know your technology. If you're like me and you jump from Zoom to WebEx to GoToMeeting to Teams, what I found recently is as soon as I come into one of those platforms, I switched my microphone and my speakers off like to something else and then back on to the good ones that I want, because they don't seem to, they get screwed up when I hop technology. So know your technology. That might be a problem for you as well. Have a good microphone. I have one here with a pop filter.
Go on camera, let people see you. Watch your camera angle though. So I have my camera on top of a very large monitor, one ultra wide, right? My old laptop used to have the camera, like if you can imagine the laptop like this, it was down here on the right by the keyboard. And if you just put it on a flat surface, it was not a flattering angle. I mean, total nostril shot, nothing good can come from that. So I would have to prop it up on books and give it the angle. Just remember, selfies. It's like a selfie. You want the angle kind of coming down, hide some of those chins, make you look good. Get good lighting. My office here is super bright because it's like 3 walls of windows, which I love. But make sure you have good lighting. You can solve that with a ring light. They make them, they're like little vanity lights. Your teenage daughter probably has one. And you just put it on and it gets good lighting on you. And watch your background. I like to invite people into my office. You can see I'm a book junkie and I love Post-it notes. But watch your backgrounds if you're working from home, especially. You might have kids flying through the background. I saw one video the other day where those executives didn't realize it, but her daughter had set up one of those little in-house trampolines, little ones, and she's like bouncing up and down in the back of it. Like, watch out for that. And then screen size matters. So if you're going virtual, ask everyone if they can see the screen well enough for the software demonstration. A lot of times the pre-sales or the demo person needs to make the display settings bigger or zoom it out so that people can see it better. So ask that, because when you're the one doing the demo, you can't tell what other people are seeing. And if you're doing, when we get back to the world of live, if you're doing a virtual demonstration where, let's say you have 4 clusters, maybe 4 offices, you got, the UK, you have Chicago, Atlanta, and Miami, all coming in, designate a moderator at each one of those facilities to read the body language, see if there's questions. Maybe they're on a big speakerphone, mute it, and then take it off when there's questions. Designate one person ahead of time at each facility to be your eyes and ears in that room. Okay, well, that's it. Guys, I just gave you a ton of information, a ton of life lessons that I learned the hard way. And by the way, every point I gave you, there's a funny story behind every one of those. But let's keep the momentum going. If you are an IBM Analytics customer, we'd love to work with you. If you want to learn more, we do these set webinars every month. We record them, we put them up on our YouTube channel. They are there to help you level up. I have a passion and a goal in life to increase the rate of technology adoption in all of our organizations, no matter what the tools are, because I believe that we're doing a lot of work that technology could do for us, but we get in our own way sometimes. So all of our programs are designed to help you be successful. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is on the screen, and we'll catch you next month at our next training session. Have an extraordinary day.